Dear God, thank you for bringing us together to this Sabbath once again. We thank you for taking us through the week and helping us to find time to rest and recuperate and also learn with each other. I pray, dear God, that you be with us as we go through this lesson and that you might help us to come up with something. We ask and pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, I'm going to try and share screen. Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, so we're just continuing on the study that I started last time, and I'll just do a recap and then we'll continue on. So we looked at we basically looked at the story of institutions, and I had wanted to understand more um, about how God works and the place that institutions have uh, in the story of the great controversy. And not just that, but the institutions that God has set up, even from heaven and here on earth, and how they're supposed to help us in the story of the great controversy. So when we looked at institutions, we looked at different synonyms and what an institution is, basically. Um, the different synonyms, we put them down, and we also identified that with each institution, whether it's an organization, a company, an establishment, or an association or a government, it has governing laws as well. That's something that is seen in all institutions, right? And then it also has a form of organization and leadership. And then we basically gave an example of how we have institutions that have different scopes in terms of the jurisdiction, how far their work goes or their governing goals. It can be a company, it can be a government, it can be a universal institution, and all of them, they have their set work that they do, and also it determines how far-reaching that institution is, right? So we also identified the issue of how institutions with institutions, there are types of institutions where people join voluntarily, and then there are those that people are there by default. Like, for example, in a country, everyone belongs to a certain country and they're bound by the rules of that government or that nation or country, right? And then you have institutions as well, like companies where you can join because you want to work with that company, or a charity organization, you want to do a particular work with them, or, different types of institutions that you can join voluntarily, right? And then I just wanted to add a bit more information on what we covered from before. I don't know if so far it makes sense what I'm saying. And if anyone feels lost or they feel like they don't understand something, they can just raise their hand and say, okay, feel free to do that. Okay, so basically what I wrote there has to do with the government, God's government, right? when we look at God's government, because that's something that we discussed also last time when we read, I think it was 1SP 20.1, and we identified that in heaven there was a government that already existed, right? That was before the fall. There was a government that already existed, and we went to 1SP 20.1 to identify a rebellion that actually occurred against the government that was there, right? And when Satan basically rebels against God's government, um, Satan promises the angels a new and better government. So from the beginning, you have one government that exists, and all the angels, of course, they're there by default because they're created beings. They are automatically part of under the government of God, right? By virtue of being created by God. And then at that point, we see that there's only one government, which is basically a universal government that governs or oversees everything that's created. And then what happens is Lucifer disagrees, right, with that government. And Lucifer basically becomes the opposition leader, right? So you have the government of God, and then Lucifer disagrees with that government and disagrees with certain things in connection with that government, and he becomes the opposition leader, right? And what does Lucifer do? Basically, he tries to topple the government that is there, that is existing, because he realized that it was not going to be possible for him to create a parallel government. First of all, he has no territory of his own, all right, that he can use. Yes, so he basically has no territory of his own that he can use, and he can't create. He can't create his own territory. He can steal subjects from God, but he cannot create a a nation or territory of his own way. He's going to basically come up with his own government and do all the things that were happening, right? So what does he do? He realizes that, in order to gain power or to have power, the only way that he would have to do it is by toppling that government, right? But what happens by trying to topple that government? It doesn't work, right? So it basically loses that war and then is expelled from heaven. And then he goes away and then he thinks it through, right? Okay, how am I going to do this? Because I'm going to need power. I have subjects already, and how am I going to be able to establish my kingdom, right? And then he basically sees Earth and he sees an opportunity. And when he goes to Earth, I don't know if I can say when he goes to Earth, he actually does it in a different way. I guess it is because he basically campaigns to Adam and Eve, and then he wins. He's given the power and authority over the earth, right? So So basically, Lucifer is given that power over the earth. So we can say it's legitimate because that power is basically transferred from Adam and Eve to Lucifer. So it's in a different way than what Lucifer had been doing before. So now what happens is Lucifer has control over a sphere of influence, which is Earth, and is now the leader on Earth. So, what then that does is it puts God as the opposition leader to the government that has been established by Satan on earth. So I don't know if that makes sense so far, what I've said,
It
or if
does.
anyone has something
Can
to
I ask
say.
a question, Charity? May
Yeah,
I ask
yeah,
a
go ahead.
question? Yeah, I just want to ask you something. When you said that obviously he was going to because I mean when I read it, I thought that I don't think that Lucifer thought he was going to be thrown out of heaven because he kept doing this, you know, trying well, he had very much influence over nearly all the angels. They were
Hmm.
nearly all on his side.
Hmm.
And also I don't think he meant I think he wanted to get the government so you know the way he wanted to while he was in heaven. I think he
Hmm.
wanted all that to happen while he was in heaven because I don't think
Yeah,
he realized he was going to be chucked out anyway, you know, fell. And also
yeah.
there's another question I wanted to ask. Oh gosh, I forgot the question now. It's all right, it'll come back to me, Charity. Yeah,
Okay,
it'll
that's
come back to me.
fine.
I had another question, but sorry. Okay.
That's all right. You can always come back when you. I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to say something or ask. Okay. So basically, what I'm trying to identify with that point is, how we end up changing from this one government that was established by God to having two types of governments. And also, Lucifer basically wins control over the earth and becomes the leader on earth. So Lucifer has established a government and a kingdom on earth, right? Even though they are not in control of the whole universe, but Lucifer is going to use earth as like an argument where they're going to try and prove their point in order to win the whole universe. So Lucifer basically tries to win the seat in heaven, and that didn't work. And the means by which they were trying to do it did not work. So therefore was expelled, and then from there fought for the earth and managed to gain it legitimately, right? And then from there, basically, Lucifer works with the subjects on earth. And on earth, Adam and Eve obviously lose the power. But as soon after they had sinned, they realized that what they had done was not good, not just for themselves, but for the whole plan of, if I can say, the whole work that God was trying to do and for humanity as well. But they still manage to repent and still choose God's government. So God still works with them. But in this case, they are not in control. And that means also God is not in control. God becomes the opposition leader, if that makes sense. So God, whilst working on earth, has has the intention of establishing a kingdom, right? But God's kingdom has to be established through righteous means, right? So basically,
Sorry, can you see hands?
Yes, I was just gonna tell her
oh, I
something
can't
because
see them.
I was waiting for her to finish
Um,
what she was gonna say first.
okay,
Go
okay,
ahead,
sorry, I
Charity.
can't see them.
Yeah, it's Andres has got his hand up, but you finish what you're gonna say first, Charity.
Okay, all right. So I was saying, so God is trying to establish their kingdom in righteousness, right? And now that God has become the opposition leader on earth and Lucifer becomes the ruling party, if we can say, then the way in which God is going to operate on earth is with a lot of restraints, not just restraints, but also the way things are going to look is so different than what it would have been had Lucifer not become the leader on earth. Okay, Andres, do you still want to say something? You can go ahead.
Yeah, hey Charity.
Right.
So my question is about God being the opposition leader.
Mm-hmm.
Um, why do you say that Satan became the Earth's leader? I'm not sure I see it.
Okay, so there is many quotations that talk about that, the whole idea. But at the same time, remember when God created the earth, God was in control. But basically, the leaders were Adam and Eve, right? And
Yeah.
when they sinned or they gave in to Satan's temptations, they basically gave the power to Satan. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's in Job where it speaks about the story of Job and how Satan would go to the council in heaven as the leader of the earth because Satan became the leader after Adam and Eve sinned.
But
So
so
that's why you needed basically the cross and everything else that happens with the redemption and everything, so that there is some form of if I can say redemption, yeah, and gaining power of some sort. I don't know if you're aware of those stories. I
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
really looked for quotations and verses on that. I don't know if anyone has, they can help us with that. Go on.
I guess maybe my question is more like how did that happen? Because like in the story, like they were deceived by Satan, and why? Because of eating of the fruit that in principle it had nothing to do with Satan, in the sense that it was something that God said, don't eat of this tree. And if they had eaten and Satan hadn't deceived them, like it would have they would have sinned anyways. So it wasn't related in, intrinsically to Satan. Um, so why, because of eating of that tree, why do they give power? Because they don't say like, okay, Satan, we give power to you. You like not even deceived. They just ate of the tree because they wanted to be better, I guess.
Because of what they were told. That's why I'm using the language of sort of like elections, because when you have Adam and Eve initially, they had gotten acquainted to God and God's principles, right? Even though they had not grown, they had not much experience, but they had enough information to know that what they were supposed to do and what they were not supposed to do. Remember, they're still relatively new on earth and they're learning slowly, right? So God gives them this rule or this law that is going to help them protect themselves, which is don't eat of this fruit, right? And Lucifer knew that and had to devise a plan in which they could go and deceive Adam and Eve in a way that they would be able to go against God's law. So it was less to do with the fruit than it had, and more to do with
The action.
what they are choosing, the principles that they're choosing. Are they choosing God's principles and trusting what God has told them, or they are going to actually, at the first point of hearing what Satan is saying, they're actually going to throw away God's principles and actually accept what Satan is saying.
Mm.
So as soon as they actually accept what Satan is saying, whether it's true or it's not true, they have already chosen the wrong government. Right. It's like, for example, when we speak about Donald Trump, whether what Donald Trump says is true or not true, he has appealed to people and their deepest desires and needs, and they are going to make choices of voting for him. And they would have made a lot of mistakes because they have already given power to Donald Trump. Right. So in the same way, you have Adam and Eve doing the same thing. They basically gave over their allegiance or power of earth to Satan. I don't know if that would help you, Andreas, but I don't want to really focus too much on that.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
There's
it
a
helps to
quotation
think.
that Emma said. Okay, go on.
Yeah. No, it helps to think. It did help in a way. Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to deviate you from the point. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, Charity, I think Ignatius has got his hand up
Okay.
or had his
Let me
hand up.
just read the quotation that Emma sent and then I'll give you to speak. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So it's from Desire of Ages 114.3.
hmm
So it says, mighty issues for the world were at stake in the conflict between the Prince of Light and the leader of the kingdom of darkness. After tempting human beings to sin, Satan claimed the earth as his and styled himself the prince of this world. Having conformed to their own nature, the father and mother of our race, Satan thought to establish here the empire. Satan declared that human beings had chosen Satan as their sovereign. Through this control of humanity, Satan held dominion over the world. Christ had come to disprove Satan's claim. As the Son of Man, Christ would stand loyal to God. Thus, it would be shown that Satan had not gained complete control of the human race, and that Satan's claim to the world was false. All who desired deliverance from Satan's power would be set free. The dominion that Adam had lost through sin would be recovered. So I guess it speaks to the issue of the dominion on earth. Yeah. I don't know if that would help, but yeah,
'Cause I guess like to me that what that's saying is that Satan's claim that
I
they
know.
had dominion, it was false. It wasn't true. So
Yes, I guess Satan does have dominion on earth, but how far the dominion goes is what is being debated on.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. Okay, Ignatius?
Hi, Charity.
Yes, hi.
Um, I I think I agree. I agree with you. How I visualize the issue is as follows. Before Satan influenced Adam and Eve to rebel against God. Okay, this is the confusing part, okay, that I just need to sort of clarify. Who was the leader on earth? If we rewind to before Adam and Eve had rebelled against God through eating from that forbidden tree, who was the leader? Was it God or it was the two?
I would say, from how I understand it, Adam and Eve were the leader on earth. But at the
Okay.
same time, Adam and Eve were under God's government or they
Okay.
were on God's side. So essentially, if we are looking at the great controversy, because this is the fight between God and Satan, the one who is in control or who is directing things at that point is God.
Okay. So God was in control of earth through the human agency, because the human
Yes,
beings were subject to God. So
yes.
so Satan tries to topple God at the headquarters that's in heaven. Then
Mm-hmm.
Satan fails. Satan then
Mm-hmm.
comes to earth, then tries to topple God through the human agency, and
And
Satan
then,
succeeds.
yes.
So, so Satan then legally uh, is the one who is supposed to be. Yes, if we look it from the perspective of God being all powerful, it becomes confusing. But if
Mm-hmm.
we take the legal route, legally, Satan can now claim to say, look, the argument that I presented to you in heaven, that your creatures can never obey you, it has proven to be true on earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I am now in charge of earth with these creatures under me, because they have
Mm-hmm.
proven that my argument is true. And God has to legally accept that because it's true. Because God is a
Yes,
just
because they
God.
have to,
Yeah.
yes, because
In
they have basically chosen Satan
yes.
out of
So
their own will.
yes. So in that case now, God still has a case to say no, but yes, they have fallen, but they have not really originated that rebellion. The rebellion was in you. So God still intends to oppose Satan. And in that case, God becomes the leader of the opposition, fighting over the agency, which is man, and the agents living on earth. So maybe if I, in my mind, if I arrange it that way, it becomes easier to understand. Maybe it
Yes,
could benefit others too.
yes, thank you. Anyone else before I move on? Okay. So basically, I just wanted to bring that point that I just thought about it, that it would be important to have it in our minds that, when we come on earth, we have to recognize that Satan is basically in control. And it helps us also to understand that God would have a lot of limitations in the work that they're trying to do on earth.
I
So
think
it would, yes, who
can I
says?
briefly can I it's me, Andres. Um
Okay.
can I briefly comment? Because I guess I see it in a slightly different way. Maybe I can. So the way that I see it is that
Mm-hmm.
um that Adam and Eve were in control of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
They had the legal dominion, but God was the military power that guaranteed that dominion. So if anyone would come and want to do something to Adam and Eve, to humanity, they couldn't because they had the backup of the power of God. Just as in any state, you have to have the military. That's the ultimate, um, I guess, guarantee of the government. And so when the way I see it is that when Adam and Eve ate of the tree, they broke the contract with the God's um, with God's government, I guess, or the military part as well. And so they lost the protection of heaven. And so it's not that they gave their dominion to Satan, but now they don't have the backup, and there's this other entity that's physically more powerful than them, and even though they still have dominion of the earth, in practice they don't, because Satan's gonna come and no one's gonna defend them against them. And so that's why Satan would claim that now they control the earth.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I see it that way.
Okay. I don't know if we can say God was the military power in that sense, because if according to what you said, if God was, then Satan wouldn't have been able to do anything to them, if you understand what I mean.
You mean to do
Like,
anything to them, as in deceive them to eat of the fruit?
yeah, because you said God was there to
Mhm.
protect them from,
Yeah,
if anyone wants to do anything to them, God would protect them.
yeah,
But
but part of the protection contract was that they were protected in the whole earth except around the tree. So when they go to the tree, they're not protected there because the contract doesn't include that. That's why Satan
okay.
was able to be there.
Okay. Anyway, like I said, I don't want to be bogged down by that. We can have the discussion after, Andres. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, no
I-
problem.
Okay. So, again, like I said, it's a recap of the last lesson. I don't want to focus on the recap, but I just wanted to emphasize that point because it's something that I thought of and I wanted to bring out. And then we looked at the issue of the two types of governments that we have, and we identified that God's government is universal, and therefore Satan's government would also be universal, because whatever Satan is doing on earth, it has implications to the whole universe and the other created beings. So even when we look at the story of the great controversy and how we are, as the 144,000, we always speak about how our success is going to determine the the what's going to happen with the entire universe, right? So whatever we are going to do and achieve here on earth as a movement has implications to the rest of the universe, the created beings where they didn't sin, but everything is at stake, basically, right? So we see that God's government begins before creation. And why I'm saying that is because it was established then. We can say that Satan's government began before, by creation here, sorry, I mean the creation of not just Earth, but of the entire universes and everything, right? So it has its seed from back then. And then Satan's government basically comes after the rebellion in heaven. Around that time, you have the seeds of it before the rebellion, and then it grows. And then Satan decides, I'm going to create a new and better government that Satan is going to promise to the other angels, right? So God's government. You said move the screen of my iPad out of the way. Okay, this one you mean. Is that what you mean, Curtis?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So, um, basically, God's government, I would say God has more than one territory. Yes, there's the headquarters in heaven, you have the other created universes and everything. And God is still in control, and they have not chosen any other type of government or any other leader, right? And then Satan has one territory, which is earth. But that territory to Satan can be used to win the war, the entire war, right?
Simba has his
And
hand up.
then,
Sorry,
yes, who's got the hand?
Simba.
Yes, go on, Simba. How come I can't see the hands even when I look at the participants? Okay.
I have a question, Charity,
Yes.
in regard to Satan's government.
Mm-hmm.
You are saying he has one territory on earth.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, when Christ died on the cross, didn't Satan lose that territory, which is the earth? I'm just asking for clarity. Help, please.
Okay. I did think about that, and to be honest, I did not explore it a lot more. I didn't want to focus on that because that's not where my study was going. But it's something we can look at maybe in a follow-up study. Because I want to understand, I think it's in Romans where it speaks about the first Adam and the second Adam, and how, Christ came to basically undo what Adam and Eve did, and to basically have that reconciliation. And I'm not sure if at the cross, um, Christ actually won back the territory of earth. I'm not sure how that goes. I'll be honest about that. Sorry, I can't be of much help. I don't know if anyone has got something to say briefly on that.
Not on that. Something else, Charity?
Something else.
Just
Okay.
quickly. I just want to know what Trumpism is.
What's written on the board.
Yeah, what are you putting under Trumpism? What does it mean?
Okay, I'll get into that. Like I said, it's a recap of what we looked at last time. And what I was trying to do with this is identify how God's kingdom and Satan's kingdom has been working on earth, and the different institutions that God has been working with, if I can say, and then the different institutions or peoples that Satan has been working with. It's basically tracing the work of Satan on earth and the work of God on earth. So it's not really it's up for debate. If you think it doesn't fit there, it's still okay. But I was just tracing the story of how God and Satan have been working on earth. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay. So I just basically
Charity.
identify.
Sorry, Charity?
Yes.
Hi, sorry. In reference to what you just said, I think that kind of answers the question really. Well, for me, it kind of partially answers the question Simba just asked, which is I don't think God had an institution at the cross. So if we're looking at it now from this model of having to have an institution that functions to combat, to have that dominion back, there wasn't a collective group of people who had that, the knowledge that we're getting now that would be fit to be an institution. I don't think at that point, if we're going to say that's what constitutes winning back dominion, but just a thought.
Okay. I see. And also, as you're speaking, I'm just thinking about it that if we look at how things have been working on Earth, I don't know, it could be true, it could be false, that we have mainly had Satan having the upper hand on Earth on a lot of things in terms of control and the principles that have had representation and that have been widely accepted on earth have been more of the principles of Satan. And God has had to be working very hard continuously, like what I have shown on that line, that when you have creation, God has Adam and Eve, right? And then after the fall, God still has to try and find out if Adam and Eve are still going to work with them, right? And they do accept to work with them, but now it's under very difficult circumstances. And once that seed of rebellion or sin has been planted, it's quite difficult to basically get rid of. And then God is continually going to have to be raising up a people, whether it's one person or a family or a group of people, to sort of preserve those principles of heaven and still have a people that are going to voluntarily accept God's government. And if you look at Satan's working, Satan pretty much has had, I think if I can say, bigger institutions and has had more influence and more workings on earth and more powerful institutions on earth than God has. If you understand what I'm saying, if that makes sense.
Can I just quickly say something? The plan of salvation has always made provisions for the new earth to be reclaimed, because it just slightly changed its name. It's just the subjects. It's just the seed from Adam and Eve, really. At the cross, the character of Lucifer was fully manifested, but the provision for the reclaiming of the earth was already integrated in the plan of salvation. So that was never really a factor. It's just the seed of Eve and Adam that was at stake.
Yes, which is basically the entire human race, right? Once you have that seed planted, it's just going to go on, because when you have Cain coming in, Cain basically does exactly the same thing that Satan does. Cain says, why do we have to be, sacrificing all these animals and doing all these things? I mean, it's not necessary. And Cain basically decides that I'm going to start my own way of doing things. He rebels against what God has given, and he goes on to have his own laws and own ways of doing things that is contrary to those of God. Yeah. And then from there, we have basically all of these ideas on earth getting more and more consolidated, and you have institutions coming up that are going to embody these principles, whether it's on God's side or Satan's side. But at Satan's side, of course, it's more clear to see, if I can say. Right. So if anyone has a hand up, please just let me know, because I can't see them.
Yeah. Andres again. I have a thought about Simba's question about the cross as well, which is that and I guess that's, for me, it's why it's important to be on the same page about the premises of like who's controlling and what dominion means, because in the way I see it as well is that the what was gained by Jesus coming to the earth, because heaven was expected to withdraw from the earth when the contract was broken. And so Satan had a free way, like there wasn't a defense mechanism for Adam and Eve for that. So it's always Adam and Eve's place. It's always their dominion, but they come, and Satan comes and conquers them, I guess, because they have no power to confront Satan. But then, like when Jesus comes, it's a mechanism for God to be able to not fully withdraw, because heaven has a, I guess, citizen here or something like that, and so that way, it's not that the contract of protection for humanity was restored there, but it's a mechanism for the process to be able to happen. So heaven still is able to not fully withdraw as it was supposed to legally, by Jesus coming to the earth, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
yeah. Emma's got her hand up as well.
Yes, go on, Emma.
Yeah, I suppose that kind of links to Andres a little bit. And when you were just saying that Satan had more influence and more powerful institutions over time, and there's got to be something in that. And I wondered if because God has tried to have a kingdom on earth and had institutions that were faithful, because it links to Andres's point about what dominion means, I suppose, and what this great country, what are we waiting for to see happen? What does it mean that God has, what's the legal mechanism of God winning back the planet? And what's the steps that need to be taken? And we're in the last generation where we must be fulfilling something that about understanding these institutions, this institution. And God has tried to do that through Solomon, through even Babylon becoming the tree that, you know, blesses the whole earth, and then the glorious land. And we know that each one fails to do that properly for any length of time or for an extended period. Perhaps we could say they all tasted it. Solomon asked for wisdom and it was going well for a time, maybe for a short time. And then it all goes belly up. So what part does the cross play in that? And then what exactly needs to happen for it to be accomplished? So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that would be interesting to just look at as well, to understand when we are talking about earth and who is in control, what do we mean? And then when we speak of the story of the great controversy and what winning looks like in the story of the great controversy, because it seems like there's I don't know if I can say a disconnect between the two, because you have, looking at the earth, we as Christians would normally say that God is in control on earth. But on the other hand, we also look at it and we say Satan is in control. So who is actually in control? But for me, it seems more like Satan is in control on earth. And in the story of the great controversy, we are also identifying that God is winning the war. So what does that look like? And just to be able to see, identify both and look at that a bit more and understand what is being achieved and, where that falls. Okay, so I'm going to go on to a quotation. Okay, Simba said something. He posted a quotation in the chat. It says, Christ, the second Adam, came in the likeness of sinful flesh in man's behalf. He became subject to sorrow, to weariness, to hunger, and to thirst. He was subject to temptation, but he yielded not to sin. No taint of sin was upon him. He declared, I have kept my Father's commandments in my early life. He had infinite power only because he was perfectly obedient to the Father's will. The second Adam stood the test of trial and temptation that he might become the owner of all humanity. Okay, so I guess maybe it's a battle for the minds of human. I don't know if it's the minds or, for human beings. Anyway, I'm just going to continue what I want us to look at today. So I'm going to ask a favor. If there is someone who is able, or maybe, okay, fine, I'm going to do it myself. I'll just share a quote from A.T. Jones that I want to look at. Not this one. So it basically speaks about government, and I wanted us to look at his thoughts on how he defines what government is. And maybe we can discuss on that. So it's basically the great empires of Bible prophecy. Is that the one? Let's see.
I think it's Empires of
Not the great.
No, not that one. The one before. EV.
Oh yeah, this one. That's the one I was
Empires
looking
of
for.
the Bible.
Thank you. So it's Empires of Bible Prophecy, the chapter that speaks about the original and ultimate government. So I wanted us to look at those thoughts and maybe we can pick up some principles that are there that may help us to understand more on the issues of government. So depending on the time, we'll see if we can also go and look at the thoughts of on, I think, monarchy. Yeah. And then if I can have volunteers to read, someone can read the first paragraph, please. If that's okay.
Okay, I'll have a go.
Yes, thank you.
The original and ultimate government. Government exists in the very nature of the existence of intelligent creatures. For the very term creature implies the creator. And as certainly as any intelligent creature is, he owes to the creator all that he is, all that they are, he is. And in recognition of this fact, they owe to the creator honor and devotion supreme. This in turn and in the nature of things implies subjection and obedience on the part of the creature and is the principle of government.
Did you pick up anything from there, Ignatius?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very interesting thoughts that the principle, what government is all about, is about subjecting yourself to a certain power, so to speak. So by being a creature, by being created and not having existed on your own, you owe already by your existence, you owe honor and devotion to that supreme being. And by doing so, you become part of a certain government. That's what I picked. Yeah.
Yes. And in this case, it's basically God's government, right?
Yes, God's government. So if you have intellect, then you might then choose to rebel or continue subjecting yourself to that government, which is God's government. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have something to say about this one? Just basically the principle of government, what he's trying to bring out on the principle of government. Okay, can I have someone else read the second paragraph, please?
Actually, sorry, what would you say from that
Oh.
sentence or those two sentences? What is the principle of government?
Okay, like what Ignatius was saying, that it's got to do with we have God as being the creator, and you have creatures that are existing, right? That have been created by God. And by virtue of them being created, they are subject to God in the sense that they cannot exist out of themselves and they need guidance and I don't know if I can say protection. They are basically going to subject themselves to God by virtue of being the creatures because they don't have the strength or the ability that God has. So they're going to need God and God is going to govern them. I don't, maybe I said a lot of things, but yeah, basically.
So is the principle that, let's say, from using those words, is supreme devotion and honor to the leader, is the principle, or is the principle is subjection and obedience to the leader, and the behind that is this recognition that the leader knows more, is the boss, is because they're the creator. That
Yes.
in that is the principle that we want to obey, honor, and have this supreme devotion. I don't know, because I'm trying to boil it down to one principle, because we'd say a principle is honesty, for instance. The government has to be honest. So what's the principle, I think, is what I'm trying to get to. One or two
Okay.
words about what the principle is. But go on, maybe Blessing's got his hand up. He might.
Oh, okay. Go on. Who's got a hand
Yes.
up? Yeah.
Sorry, I took long because I was having technical issues. I was failing to unmute, but I
Okay.
was spoken earlier. I wanted to say it sounds like hierarchy to me.
Okay.
Yeah, that passage is describing hierarchy.
Okay.
So that's what I would refer to as the principle there. That hierarchy is
Ah,
the
that
principle of
is
There
government.
has to be
there's
a boss. There has to be
Yeah.
someone has to be in charge.
someone has to be in charge.
And you recognize that person deserves to
And
be
that
in charge.
and that authority has to be recognized.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Paying homage.
Yeah.
Can
Okay,
I say,
so yes, go on.
I'm not sure how like what words to put to it, but it doesn't sound very like I don't know. It reminds me to the concept of that. I don't know if we would apply that or if we would agree with that if we put it in the context of parents, because to me it's basically saying, because you created me, you owe me and you own me. And if we thought about that in the context of parents, we would say that's quite ugly. Um, so because you created me, you created me. You don't own me. You made me an independent being, and your and a parent's role is to provide for the development of that person till they can be independent fully on their own. So I don't know. I mean, like, I don't initially like I don't think I agree with that A.G. Jones is bringing up, I guess, about like
Okay,
how I see government.
I think maybe you are implying what A.T. Jones is saying, because A.T. Jones didn't say owned. I don't think he used that word even. Even in what he says, he's not speaking about ownership. He's speaking about the creator and the created being. And that, just like the parable you used, a parent and a child, once you become a parent, you know that that child, for them to grow, they are going to need to subject themselves to the parent, because they know they can't exist of themselves. And by subjection, we are not talking about abuse. We are talking about just basically acknowledging that that creature cannot survive, thrive, or do anything outside of themselves without the one who created them. That's the basic principle. We are not talking about the issue of abuse or the issue of ownership, because once you speak to those terms, it's something different altogether.
Yeah, Blessing has his hand up.
Yes, yes,
Oh.
Blessing. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
I just wanted to say that the way the word "o" is used, everyone and Andreas, in this passage is not the way you might think it is. Because when someone talks about, like in this context, he owes to the Creator all that he is, it's not a debt. It's not speaking about indebtedness. It's speaking about like recognition of a fact that if I'm going to look at what I am, I exist because of this person. That's what it means in this context. So when it says he owes to the Creator all that he is, it's another way to say it is the person acknowledges that this is where I came from.
and
That's
they
what it
cannot
means.
live outside of that.
Yes. So the word "o" can be used in different ways in different contexts. Not the way that I think you used it, which is the probably the more common way of using the word, which is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's different.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Before you speak, Andreas,
yeah.
after Andreas speaks, Blessing, would you read the second passage? Thank you. Yes, go on.
Yeah, I see that it can be used in two ways. And maybe it's being used that way, but I'm not fully convinced, because in the sense that it, like, after it says that, implies that this owning something implies subjection and obedience.
Subjection and obedience.
Yeah, so it kind of like leads me to think that it's being used in the owning as like in the other sense, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, like I said, it might be the way you're understanding those words, because I think they are quite dynamic. They can be used in different ways.
Sure.
Blessing, could you read the second paragraph, please?
Okay. Each intelligent creature owes to the Creator all that they are. Accordingly, the first principle of government is, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is pronounced by the Lord to be the first of all the commandments. It is not the first of all the commandments because it was the first one that was ever given, but simply because it exists in the very nature and existence of every intelligent creature. And so inheres in the nature of things as soon as a single intelligent creature exists. It is therefore the first of all the commandments, simply because it is but the expression of the inherent obligation in the first relationship which can possibly exist between creature and creator. It is the first in the nature, the circumstances, and the existence of created intelligences. It is the first of all commandments in the supreme and most absolute sense. It inheres in the nature and relationship of the first intelligent creature and stands as complete in the case of that one alone as though there were millions, and stands as complete in the case of each one in the succession of future millions, as in the case of the first intelligent creature, as he stood absolutely alone in the universe. No expansion, no multiplication of the number or the creatures beyond the original one can ever in any sense limit the scope or meaning of that first of all commandments. It stands absolutely alone and eternally complete as the first obligation of every intelligent creature that can ever be. And this eternal truth distinguishes individuality as an eternal principle.
Okay, so before you say something, I just want to say I don't really want to focus on the issue of the first commandment, because that's not what I want to discuss. But I don't know if you picked up anything from there.
You assumed that I was going to say something. So what I was going to say is A.T. Jones's language is very difficult to decode.
Exactly, yeah.
So I guess I'll also say that in the context of our broader discussion as a group, that we might end up getting bogged down in the use of certain words. I'm not saying it's bad to have the discussion, but we might end up, just feeling like we disagree when we can extract a principle. And I think for me, what stood out was acknowledging the relationship that exists between the creator and the creature. In that passage, he said a lot of things, but that each creature has a distinct and separate relationship with their creator. It's unique and is not shared with anyone else. So he uses the word individuality there. So yeah, point being, if a creator creates an intelligent being, there's a recognition that a relationship exists there, and we need to understand the nature of that relationship. It's the relationship of a created being with a creator. So, and it's unique and individual. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to say that I forgot to say that at the beginning, that when you read A.T. Jones' books, his language, his English and his expressions, they can be quite complex to understand. And sometimes he can use certain words in a way that you might not understand, or you might feel like you disagree with them. And I don't want us to be bogged down by that. I just wanted us to pick up certain principles about the issues connected with government, right? Because we just want to look at the issue of the ultimate government, original ultimate government, and then certain points that he takes up from there. So having said that, I don't know if there's anyone who has something to say before I continue.
Just say that you've had an hour. That's all.
Okay. All right. So basically, we in the story of government, we are introduced to the creator and then a creature, right? And then we have that creature that acknowledges the fact that they were created, and they know that they basically are going to, this is something that happens naturally, even with children. When children are born, no one forces them to subject themselves to their parents. They know they're going to go to their parents when they need food and for guidance, for different things, because they acknowledge the fact that they were created by this being. And to them, that being is basically their God, and they are going to subject themselves to the parent. So in the same way as creatures, we do the same thing to God, right? And then he introduces another point related to an additional relationship. The other paragraph, the one after that, it basically says, however, just as soon as a second intelligent creature is given existence, an additional relationship exists, right? So you have Andreas with God. Andreas has been created by God, and Andreas has a relationship with God, right? But then someone else is created, or someone else is introduced into that story. You have Blessing, Andreas, and then you have God, right? So there's now not only the primary and original relationship of each to the creator. So Andreas has a relationship with God, Blessing has a relationship with God, right? For both owe equally their existence to the creator. They both acknowledge and know that they were created by God, but also an additional and secondary relationship of each to each other. So now they are not just acknowledging that they have a relationship with God as individuals, but they also see that they have a relationship with each other, right? By virtue of being in close proximity. So this secondary relationship is one of absolute equality, and in the subjection and devotion of each to the Creator, in the first of all possible relationships, each of these honors the other. Therefore, in the nature of things, in the existence of two intelligent creatures, there inheres the second governmental principle, mutuality of all the subjects as equals, right? So he's basically identifying a second principle in terms of government, right? So you have the first principle, acknowledging God and subjecting yourself to God, or basically having a relationship with God as you understand yourself as a creature to the Creator. But now, because there's another creature, you have to also recognize the relationship that you have, because Andreas knows that he has a relationship with God, and then he has to acknowledge that Blessing also equally has a relationship with God, and they owe respect to one another, right? They basically stand as people who have a relationship of absolute equality by virtue of both of them being creatures. Okay, Curtis, you said something in the chat. I don't know if there's anyone with a hand.
Sorry, that was just in answer to Simba's question. He asked
Okay.
what is the meaning of subjection and obedience? And
Okay.
I guess my answer was kind of drawn from what you just read and what Blessing read before, or described before, that those two terms, I think, are in the context of the unique relationship that a creator has with a creature. So the creator and the creature have this relationship where the creator is going to have the well-being of their creatures in mind or at heart with whatever they do. And so it's not blind subjection or obedience, the terms that A.T. Jones uses. It's following the creator with the belief that the creator has their well-being in mind. And when you do that, when you follow the creator, knowing that the creator has your well-being in mind, you know that the creator also has your neighbor's well-being in mind. So the other creatures that they have. So if the creator has two creatures, Blessing and Andres, the creator is going to create a system that has Andres's well-being and Blessing's well-being in mind. So me, as one of the creatures, I'm going to follow this creator, believing that that creator is going to look after me and Andres. And so it's not me arbitrarily following the rules that this creator has set up. It's following those rules with the hope and belief that their rules are protecting Andres as well as myself, as well as Blessing, and myself. So yeah, that's all, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so basically he's bringing out the other point, a second principle in connection with government, that we don't only owe respect and relations to the governing power. In this case, it's God. But also we have to acknowledge the relationship that we have with those who are fellow creatures as us. So acknowledging that, okay, Blessing has equally a relationship with God as I have to respect him as at the same level as me. I don't know if that makes sense. That it then brings about the issue of being subject to the governing powers and also the type of relationship we're going to have as individuals, as creatures, as citizens, for example, right? And which is a relationship of equality. So I don't know if there's anyone else who has got something to say.
Hi, Charity. Just one more thing on what you just said, which I found interesting, is the fact that this creator, when they have many creatures, I guess it's the subservience, obedience, subjection has to accompany a belief that that creator is going to apply their own laws equally amongst all their creatures. So if I believe that the system is just that my creator has, then my creator is not going to have favorites where the law is going to apply unequally to their various creatures. So I think the type of government that we're reading about from A.T. Jones's description is a type of government where this creator applies the law equally to their creatures, basically. And that's the reason why you have this obedience and subjection, is because of basically equality under the law that flows from the creator.
Yes. And it's setting out the I guess, like he says, the original and ultimate government. This is basically what things are supposed to be like before we go to the other types of governments that have existed on earth. Because remember, the book is speaking about the empires of Bible prophecy, right? And it is identifying to you these principles that have always been there from the beginning and how things were supposed to look like. So I guess for me, it goes back to what I was saying, that when God creates or has that government from the beginning, before the rebellion, this is what is supposed to be happening. This is how things are supposed to be like. And then after the fall, things don't go that way. Things become different. Yeah. So if I can ask a favor, I don't know if there's anyone who on their device has this chapter opened or the book opened. I want to do something I want to just move around on my iPad and do something. So if anyone can help me by sharing this chapter.
I have it open, Charity.
Okay, so I'll just stop sharing and then you can help me by putting it up so I can refer to my notes. Is that okay?
Yeah, you mean post it in the chat when you want to quote?
Yeah, I guess you can post it in the chat or just share it. It's okay.
Hi, Charity.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just thinking of something. You see, the moment this second being is created, already there begins to become a risk. Because as long as these beings have individual, capacity and choice, it becomes a risk on the part of the creator, because it's now more than one being. It's now two. And connecting a bit to what Curtis has said, that there has to be the perception of equality, and that the creator is going to institute laws that uphold equality for all creatures. It becomes really a big risk. To me, God, by sharing existence with creatures, that in itself was going to be a risk, especially if these creatures were going to have capacity and to be able to think on their own. Because the moment you have more than one person, you can start introducing terms like politics, power struggle. In a perfect environment, it's not supposed to happen, but it did happen, you see. When the beings became many and amongst themselves, obviously they are not uniform, because if they are going to be uniform in terms of personality, in terms of their disposition, it becomes boring. So they are diverse beings, and by diversity the risk is so big. And well, the result that then happened is that order could not be contained. One became too big-headed in courts and began to want to have power more than the creator. It's just crossing my mind. I thought I should share.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Emma, could you please post the next 3 paragraphs, please? And I'll ask someone to read the next one. We'll just do 1 paragraph at a time. Okay. Natalie, could I ask you to read that paragraph, please?
I knew you were going to ask me. Just knew it.
You haven't been saying much today. Sorry,
Um,
Emma. It seems like it's.
Where is it? Is it Emma put it there? Yeah.
Sorry, it's
And the
first one is
principal.
and. I just missed off the A by accident. Sorry, and this bit's full.
Okay. Shall I read it?
Yes, please.
All of it.
Yes, please.
And this principle is expressed in the second of all the commandments. Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. This is the second of all the commandments, for like reason that the first of all the commandments, it exists and inheres in the nature of things and all intelligences. Just as soon as the second intelligent creature exists, and also like the first, this is complete and absolute. The moment that the two intelligent creatures exist, and it never can be expanded nor can it be modified by the existence of the universe full of intelligent and creatures. Don't ask me to comment on that. Thank you very much.
You didn't get anything from that.
Sorry, I am listening, but I'm also doing a study of my own in the background, so I just don't think I can do a good job of it. So I'll hand it to someone else.
Okay. So it's basically going back to what we spoke about, and he's just tying it to the first and second commandments. Jesus speaks about the two greatest commandments: love the Lord your God with all thy heart and all thy might and all. And then the second of the greatest commandments is love thy neighbor as thyself. So it's just basically connecting that to and making those the two great governmental principles, because there's the part of uh, the relationship that you have with God, and how God has that governing authority over creatures, right? And also how you acknowledge the power that God has and that you are a creature and how you need God, right? And then also having the aspect of how you govern yourself in connection with the other people, the relationships that you have with other people. Yeah. So we are just going to read the next one, and then if there's any comments, we do that. So the next one basically say, each himself alone in their own individuality is completely subject and devoted first of all to the Creator, because they owe basically everything to God. And in this subjection and devotion to the Creator, first of all, each honors every other intelligent creature as their equal, as equally with themselves occupying their place in the design of the Creator, and responsible individually and only to the Creator for the fulfillment of that design. Therefore, out of respect to the Creator, to their neighbor, and to themselves, they have to love their neighbor as themselves. And in this second eternal truth, equally with the first, distinguishes individuality as an eternal principle. So he's just bringing this issue of individuality, right? And I think he then begins to speak about the principle of self-government afterwards in the following paragraphs. It says, this is original government. So this is how things were from the beginning. It is also ultimate government. That's basically everything, because these are first principles, complete and absolute. And because they eternally inhere in the nature and relationships of intelligent creatures. And this government, which is at once original and ultimate, is simply self-government. Self-government in reason and in God. For it is only the plainest, simplest dictate of reason that the intelligent creature should recognize that to the Creator they owe all, and that therefore subjection and honor are the reasonable dues from them to the Creator. It is likewise a simple dictate of reason that since their neighbor equally with themselves owes all to the Creator, their neighbor must be respected and honored in all this, as they themselves would desire to be respected and honored in it, right? It is also the simple dictate of reason that since these have all been created and in their existence all to the Creator, this existence with all its accompaniments in the exercise of abilities and powers should ever should be ever held strictly in accordance with the will and design of the Creator, because it is still further the simple dictate of reason that the Creator could never have designed that the existence, the faculties, or the powers of any creature should be exercised contrary to their will or outside of their design. Therefore, it is the simplest, plainest dictate of reason that this original and ultimate government, which is self-government, is self-government under God, with God and in God, and this is the truest self-government. So I'll say this, I'm still trying to understand what he's saying about the issue of self-government. I don't know if anyone properly understands what he's saying in this. Okay, Blessing is a hand.
No, I don't properly understand what he's saying. My hand was raised before that.
Oh, I have an idea.
I guess, can I just say what I wanted to say?
That's fine.
So what I wanted to say is, I think as difficult as this paragraph is to decode, I think the more you read the chapter and the book, really, the more you'll see that Jones is not talking about being slaves. I think Curtis called it blind subjection and obedience. He used the word design. So you could call God a designer and you the design. So everything designed as a designer. And obviously, if you design something, it means it's supposed to work or function according to its design. So the natural and reasonable thing to do is for the designed thing to follow the intent of the designer. I think that's the point he's making. It's not so much that, because what we tend to think of, and, we react to that, is, so I have no will of my own. I can't make decisions for myself. And I don't think he was addressing that, as in he wasn't trying to make that point. Just by looking at this passage and I guess others that follow, it's more related to what Curtis, I think, said.
Okay.
Yeah, that the designer will have something good in mind. You're designing something good, you have a good intent, and therefore the designed thing, naturally, the natural and reasonable thing, doesn't mean it will happen, but the thing that should happen, just based on common sense, is follow the design. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as linking that with self-government, I'm sorry, I don't think I can be of much help.
Okay, that's fine. I guess it's something that we can always explore, but I think it might also be connected to God's original design and how you govern yourself in connection with others within yourself, and then when you interact with others, and how you interact with God as well. I don't know, but it's something that we can always explore. Yes, Titus.
Happy Sabbath. I just
Happy
wanted
Sabbath.
to say, I just wanted to say what you have just said, which is that in relation to the last statement, my thoughts were that every intelligent creature has been created by the Creator. So, which means every intelligent creature has a connection with the Creator and not a connection with themselves, in the sense that it's only the creature that created the Creator that created the creature, of course, which is intelligent. And so one creature cannot dictate to another creature, because the creature owes existence only to the Creator, not to other creature. So which means all of them have an equal place, because they all have this relationship with or their existence only to the Creator and not to another creature, which means, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So
Sorry,
because of
Jimmy,
time,
just a quick one, sorry.
yes.
I just wanted to say that A.T. Jones, as much as I think the rest of Americans in his time, most Americans in his time, were impacted by the American Revolution. And one of the core tenets of the American Revolution was people have agency. So a king doesn't just tell us what to do, and we just do it. So that's the broader context will actually help to inform that, Jones does not support the idea of blind submission. And it might be related to self-government as well, because he was really heavy on freedom of conscience. And self-government was a principle that I think in America was called republicanism at the time, because republicanism is associated with the idea that a person can make decisions for themselves. And maybe that could help to explain what he's saying here. That if every creature has a unique relationship with the creator, meaning they can actually, I'll say, get orders from their creator without the intervention of another person who's their equal, then one of the most important principles of government, I think he says the principle of government, is self-government. So each individual is capable of making decisions for themselves, and every other person should respect that person's ability to make those decisions.
Okay. Thank you. So basically, we are identifying the principle of recognizing as individuals the relationship we have with God, and recognizing the relationship that other people have with God, and also understanding that we were created as free human beings, intelligent human beings, who are supposed to self-govern, or who are supposed to think for themselves, make decisions for themselves, and have the right to make mistakes, have the right to think and do things for themselves. So no other human being actually has the right to decide for another what they are supposed to do, whether it's their relationship with their creator or their relationship with themselves. Right. So I think if we go to the next chapter, the first paragraph, that's EBX.3. It says God has created all intelligences absolutely free. God made human beings equally with other intelligences to be moral. Freedom of choice is essential to morals. To have an intelligence unable to choose would have been to make it incapable of freedom. Therefore, God made human beings equal with other intelligences, free to choose. They're equally free to choose, right? And God ever respects that of which God is the author, the freedom of choice. And when in the exercise of this freedom of choice, an intelligence chooses that their existence with its consequent faculties and powers shall be spent strictly subject to the will and within the design of the Creator. And so indeed, with the Creator and in the Creator, this is the truest sense, strictly and truly self-government. I think that paragraph for me explains a lot more on the issue of self-government. I think it then goes back to what Andreas was saying, because it brings out more the points of what Jones is saying. He's not saying that God says I own you, and you just have to just subject yourselves to everything and anything that I say. Because here he actually brings out the point of how every created being is actually intelligent and is absolutely free, which means every intelligent being that is created has to decide, they have to exercise that freedom of choice where they are going to decide for themselves to subject their will and their powers and faculties to the creator, right? And this is what he is calling the self-government. This is truly self-government, where you basically are given that opportunity as a free, intelligent being to make a choice to actually follow the creator or subject yourself to God, seeing that this is what is good for you. Yes, Simba.
So you see, Charity, now on this earth, it looks as if Satan is in control, but it's not like that, because God allows individuals to exercise that free will. That does not mean that God is not in charge of the earth. These are one of the principles of God to the creatures that he created, that they have this free will of doing whatever they want. So this is the point that I wanted to bring home, that let us remember that the fact that we have so many people who are rebelling against God right now, that is not any evidence which we must base upon that God is not the one who is in charge maybe of the earth. These are my thoughts. I'm not saying what you said is wrong. So
okay.
it just came to my mind when you brought up this point of free will. You see this government of God, what it does. So I just find it necessary to just raise that point. Maybe we can see it from that angle. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to say something about this. As we wind down, there's a lot more to talk about. Maybe we can always look at it in the next presentation to just understand more about how then the earth came to where it is now in terms of governments and the empires and states, monarchies that are there. Yes, go on.
Yeah.
Oh God, Brian.
Oh, okay. I couldn't tell who it was.
Yeah, I was just thinking too. Everybody's thinking today. Um, when it got to Noah's time, God says he regretted. Do you remember that part?
Creating human beings.
Yeah. But still saved Noah and his family to continue. And I'm just thinking what was going on in God's mind. Could have just ended it.
Okay.
Charity.
Yes. Sorry, Emma, did you want to say something? Maybe before
Yes.
Ignatius.
Just to
Sorry,
clarify.
if you speak after Emma.
Yeah, just to clarify about the self-government, I think for me, it's just repeating, I guess, what others have said in a way, but I'm trying to clarify in my own head that this true self-government, because we think we all govern ourselves, or human beings think they make choices for themselves, they do things for themselves. And I think Jones is saying the only way you can truly do that is if you're in harmony with the creator, because the creator, the essence of the creator is freedom to choose. And the essence of Satan is not freedom to choose. So if you are not in harmony with God, the creator, then you don't actually have freedom to choose and you're actually a slave, because this whole thing is about whether you actually do have freedom to choose and is contrast to slavery. So if you're in harmony with the creator, you cannot be a slave, because God is not a dictator and does not have slaves. God is, the very essence of God is free will, is choice. So God has to get a group of people who really believe that God is not a dictator, that God gives freedom to choose, And when they're in harmony with that creator, they now have freedom to choose. And that is the essence of government, is it's freedom to choose. It's not slavery and obedience and blind submission, which is what Curtis made that point. So it's really understanding the nature of God and the nature of humanity in connection with God, that if you work outside of God, you become a slave to Satan because you're not in harmony with the source of free choice. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. It's actually bringing me back to when we're talking about the issue of self-governance and going back to what Jones is saying about the original and ultimate government, and how this is what governance or government should be like. And this is how we are supposed to be relating to each other and even the subsequent governments on earth. This is how they are supposed to represent things or govern other subjects. But of course, we know things went wrong. So it looks totally different now than it would have been before.
So
Just to
going
let you
back
know,
to
just to let you know, it's 11:45. So
Okay.
yeah, we need to start wrapping up.
All right.
can just make one more point about that, because I think it links into Andreas's question at the beginning, that if you see the model as God's the monarch, and I was trying to get a model that works. I don't know if this works or not, but God is the monarch and Adam and Eve are the government. But in the beginning, the monarch and the government are in total harmony. So they work together equally to govern the world. So they're in a training program to learn how to do that, but they're going to have equal rights, equal governance with God, because they're the same nature and the same essence. So they're in harmony totally. At that first election, when they choose the fruit, they choose Satan in that election, the way Elder Tess described it as an election. They choose a different monarch. So they choose Satan now, and now they're under slavery dictatorship. So Satan, ever since then, has been trying to get people to believe that that's the same nature as God's government. You want God as a dictator, or do you want Satan as a dictator? And I think God has been trying to teach us in this movement, God was never a dictator and will never be a dictator, because that's the nature of God, is this freedom to choose. It's not, God cannot be a dictator. So when we go back to the original model, God was equal with Adam and Eve. God was not over Adam and Eve. And that's, I think, where we need to get back to.
Yeah. Okay. Ignatius, just a quick one, sorry, so that we can wrap up.
Okay, I wanted to say that God is in control of the earth, but God is not controlling. There is a difference there. We perceive God as one who is controlling. No, God is in control. So it partly addresses what Brian was talking about God now looking at the earth, and God says, hey, these people, why are they doing what they are doing? And God regrets, in the words of, repented in the words of Moses. It boils down to the same point that while God is in control, but God is not controlling events and is not controlling humanity. Humanity chooses what they want to do and which way they want things to go. You see now. The only part that confuses me, that I just want to throw it in, maybe it's a spanner to our discussion. People can think about it, maybe not during the lesson because it will then stretch, is that this choice that Emma was talking about and emphasizing that God gives us choice, etc. This choice goes in the same direction, in one direction. That is where the should I say problem or irony is, in that you are given choice, but the choice has to be A and not B. Because if it's gonna be B, you die. You see now. So God is not a dictator. God says you have choice, but the choice is, if you choose this one, I wish the choice was about, you want an apple or a banana, or you want cheese, you want this, you want that. It will be good. But this one is, if you choose B, you die. But if you choose A, you leave. And at the same time, this ruler is not a dictator. He gives you choice. But the choice element now, maybe I'm seeing it from a fallen state. Maybe if I were in the shoes of Adam and Eve, it would be easier to understand. But from a fallen state, we don't have choice at all, according to me. If we want to live, there is only one pathway that we should follow. If we don't follow that pathway, we don't respect your choice, you die, my friend. You just die.
Okay, interesting point. We can always discuss that outside of the lesson. Okay, so I just want to quickly say, so my discussion so far has been about understanding basically the institutions that God has set up on earth that they've been working with, and we're trying to achieve the work of the great controversy, right? Whether it's the salvation of humanity and the redemption of the universe, right? And we are trying to understand why God would work with institutions, and we have identified the different groups of people or institutions that God has worked with, and with every dispensation they look different. And we have also seen how Satan has done the same thing, and we've traced the story from the beginning that Satan disagrees with God's government and promises to the angels a new and better government. So Satan desires to create or have that government that's counter to that of God, to basically prove to the other angels that what you need is my type of government and not that of God. And what we were trying to do today, also what I identified earlier, is that, from the beginning, God has been the one who's been the ruling party, and Satan became the opposition party because Satan disagreed. And we go on earth, things change. Initially, God is the ruling party through Adam and Eve, but Adam and Eve, they lose that authority, they lose that power to Satan. And we see also that initially Satan wanted to topple God's government, and that didn't work. And Satan had to find means and ways in which they could do it in a legal way, right? And this is what Satan does in the Garden of Eden. And then from there, we are constantly seeing God as the opposition leader, still trying to achieve and accomplish that work of establishing a kingdom in righteousness, but now is under very difficult circumstances. And God has to continually work with the people who choose their principles, right? And we see this story from the beginning of the earth, and we can trace it all the way up to the end. And what we were trying to understand today is the original government and the principles of God's government. And we are trying to identify the principle of that government, and hoping that it would help us also to understand the principles of Satan's government, maybe by contrast, and then to also understand the work that God has been achieving here on earth. So hopefully we can continue next time. I don't know where we will go next time, but we can try and understand more these issues and see what we can learn. So I think this is it for now. I'll pray to close. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you so much for a wonderful lesson and all the things that we've been able to share and learn from each other, and discussing all these points and helping us to understand more about the principles of your government, and how we acknowledge, each and every one of us, by being in this movement, that you are the creator and we all our allegiance and subjection to you. And equally, we acknowledge as well the relationship that our fellow friends and members of the movement and all that are in the world have that relationship with you as well, and how we have that relationship of absolute equality. And we pray, dear God, that we can embody that in this movement as the representative of your government here on earth. We pray, dear God, that you might help us as a people, that we continue to learn and especially unlearn the wrong principles that we have learned, and take up your principles and see how important and good they are for us. So we pray that you be with us for the entire day, and that your blessing might be upon us continually. We ask and pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.